Commander Harris, can you hear me? Or Mars? Commander Mars? Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, John.
Okay. And I think that the IT people will be able to help unmute you if you get a question to ask, but it's always better to just unmute yourself when someone asks a question and then keep yourself muted all the rest of the time. They have that ability though to help you either way if you know, if you're having an issue with that. How you doing, Chuck?
Good, how are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for being on this.
Of course.
It's Chuck Mars.
Mayor's?
Mares. Nice to meet you. Mike Curdy, Antelope Valley Fire.
Same here, sir.
I've never been able to make it down to meet you in person.
Sometime
busy.
I'll make it up there.
So I think everybody can probably hear this. We haven't started the meeting yet, but we're waiting for a couple of panelists to join us still. We'll give it another minute.
Supervisor Peters, I think we're good to go if you'd like to kick it off.
Okay, did we get Chief Freefault?
We do.
Okay, great. Okay, well, first I want to welcome everybody to, it's actually the third North County Town Hall. Wanted to provide the opportunity for specific questions related to our North County area. We had a previous one just for Bridgeport and one for just Antelope Valley. And we have an excellent panel tonight made up of members from the EOC, from agencies, agency partners. One of the advertised participants had a last minute conflict and could not attend. Jan Cutts, who's the Bridgeport District Ranger for the Forest Service. Any Forest Service related questions that we can't answer, you can put them in writing and she will get you answers to those questions. So we have tonight, I believe if they're all on, Stacy Corliss, who's the chair of the Mono County Board of Supervisors, Brian Wheeler from Mono County Public Health, who's going to be one of the moderators. I didn't see Chief Pemberton, but he was invited, Bridgeport Fire Chief, Chief Curdy, Antelope Valley Fire Chief, Sheriff Braun, Kathy Peterson, Mono County Social Services and Community Support at the EOC, Robin Roberts from Mono County Behavioral Health, Jeff Simpson, Mono County Economic Development, Chris McCrasick, the EMS Chief, Commander Lieutenant Chuck Mayers from the California Highway Patrol, based here in Bridgeport, and Ryan Dermody, and I'd like to congratulate Ryan, who was recently appointed the Caltrans District 9 Director. It only took him 19 years to spend in Bishop at the district office to work his way up to that position. But thank you for being on this meeting. And also Sergeant Major Matthew Faust from the Mountain Warfare Training Center. All of these panelists are here. A couple will give brief, very brief updates. We don't want to be repetitive about things that have been covered in other meetings, board meetings, other community updates. But most are here to answer your questions. This is the spirit of this meeting, is to get your questions out on the table, get information that you otherwise might not be aware of or haven't found the resource to find that information. So with that, I'm going to encourage you to type your questions in. And if we have too many questions that cannot all be answered, or that if there are questions that are common to other questions, we'll sort of combine those answers. And I'm going to give an update before, more of an update after we finish introducing Justin Caparuso, who's another moderator from the EOC. He is part of the PIO team. So I'm going to turn it over to him and we'll keep this meeting flowing. It's scheduled to go till 6:30. So take it away.
Thank you, Supervisor Peters. Just to reiterate, for those of you that do have questions, there is at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A. You'll want to go in there and type your question and we'll get to those at the end. First, we're going to turn it over to Cassandra Montez, and she's also part of the Joint Information Center team and PIO team communications, and she's going to provide a brief update on Hispanic outreach.
Thank you, Justin. Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Cassandra Montes. Soy la encargada de operaciones de emergencia Extensión Latina. Esta noche, 13 de mayo, quisiera informarles sobre la información más reciente sobre COVID-19. Me gustaría informarles sobre la línea directa 211 del condado de Mono. Anuncia esta línea directa para brindar información, apoyo y orientación a los residentes. Con solo llamar el número 211, los dirige del departamento que quisiera obtener más información. Por ejemplo, puede llamar con una enfermera si tiene preguntas sobre los síntomas de COVID-19, algún tema relacionado a servicios sociales o si gustan hablar con alguien en el departamento de salud mental. Les puedo asegurar a todos que todo es confidencial. Este número se opera a los 7 días de la semana de 8 a 5 p.m. Si gustaría escuchar más información en español y preguntas, por favor, únanse a la conversación comunitaria cada jueves a las 6:30 vía Zoom o por teléfono. Para obtener más información al tanto diario, nuestro condado, visite nuestra página coronavirus.español.monocounty.ca.gov. Los espero mañana jueves en la conversación comunitaria a las 6:30. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cassandra. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to go into our key topic updates, and these will be just a few brief presentations from a few of the speakers on some topics of general interest before we head into our Q&A. And the first is going to be on fishing season, and Supervisor Peters is going to lead that.
Okay, so as you all know, fishing season was paused in order to stop the influx of many people that come for the traditional Fishmas opening of fishing season. That required the Department of Fish and Wildlife's director, Chuck Bonham, to be granted the authority to do that by the Fish and Game Commission. And with that authority, it was bestowed the authority to reinstate the fishing season. It's been very publicly noted by me that I've been asking to have fishing season reopened as early as the 15th, trying to get it open by Memorial Day. So that was in an effort to put that message out to the region. This is a regional fishing pause with Alpine and Inyo County. So we're still in discussions about how to coordinate that as a region. There's no date certain for the opening of fishing season. We do know that as of the 31st of May, Fish and Game's or Fish and Wildlife's authority for the director will expire, which in and of itself would predicate fishing season opening the following day. So with that, there's a lot of dates that we just don't have dates certain for. Fishing season being one of them. When will the campgrounds open? When can we do more? Everyone wants to know, when can we do more? And most of you, if you're tuned into this meeting, you're tuned into press conferences by the governor, other meetings that are held by the county board of supervisors, other community briefings. And what we know now is the governor has a 4-stage process to open. And if I'm covering some of what some of our EOC may say, I apologize, but I wanted everyone to hear clearly that we have, as the rest of the state moved into stage 2, the very beginning of stage 2, we don't meet the criteria that the governor laid out to accelerate to the end of stage 2 without an attestation, a verification by our board of supervisors, by the hospital, and by the public health officer that we have met all the criteria, and perhaps ask for exceptions to the ones that we seemingly would be very difficult to meet just based on our size, our population, our number of cases. We had several cases over the weekend. That is a very active process, and I anticipate that within days, not weeks, we will be working our way through that process to make that appeal to the state public health board. It's not something that the board of supervisors can just flip a switch on as is none of this is something that the Board of Supervisors can flip a switch on. It is the public health emergency that hasn't changed. The governor's order has not changed, that every Californian has a stay-at-home order. Non-essential travel is prohibited. Only essential travel can occur with Californians, all 40 million Californians. Some states have been successful to get through the attestation process. I believe it was somewhere around 12 or so as of today to get through stage 2. That does not get them allow them the ability to have tourist-based travel and have nightly rentals for tourists that come into their counties as non-essential travel. So that's a lot all at once. I wanted to make sure I covered that. But I want to also remind everyone that this isn't an us against them thing. This isn't who can get to that finish line quickest. Everybody I know that is working in the county, in state offices, are trying to advocate to get us back to a place where our economic viability is still there. We want to reopen. We're trying to do it and do it within the legal ability. So what we know is it's not an us against them. We are all them. We are all us. But I can tell you what doesn't choose us or them is the virus. It's killed 80,000 Americans. That's real. And we can't forget that, even though we're in a beautiful isolated place where the virus has not really touched most of Mono County outside of the town of Mammoth, maybe a case or two. So I wanted to remind you of that. I'm going to pass this over to our CAO, Bob Lawton. He's next up to talk briefly about short-term rentals, and then I'll turn it, or I should be turning it back to the moderator, Justin. But I'm here to answer questions as everybody is, and we'll do the best we can.
Thank you, Supervisor Peters. And yes, we are going to move next into a discussion with Acting County Administrative Officer Bob Lawton on short-term rentals, as well as a little maybe explanation on the stay-at-home order and what that means for the county in lieu of the state's order.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Thank you, Supervisor Peters. We have a local order from the public health officer restricting short-term rentals to purposes meant to protect the homeless population, to provide lodging for people who have been displaced and cannot return to their residence because there's somebody there who must be isolated, or generally lodging for people who need to isolate or quarantine. Other permitted authorized purposes are for housing essential workers who are performing functions essential to maintain continuity of operation, and emergency lodging for stranded travelers. That stays in effect right now until May 31st. Reservations may be taken now for dates in June, with the understanding that the order could be extended beyond May 31st, and those reservations would need to be canceled. And this, if it is extended, would likely be tied to an extension of the governor's stay-at-home order. That those two things would keep pace with one another. Mono County, all of the agencies, the County of Mono, the Town of Mammoth Lakes, we are all focused on reducing the number of active cases of COVID-19 here in Mono County. We are focused tremendously on qualifying for a variance, meeting the requirements with respect to the number of cases, the availability and prevalence of testing, our capacity, our surge capacity at the hospital. We're working toward moving forward toward a more toward and through stage 2. So thanks very much, Justin. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to the path ahead reopening strategy. And we're going to be hearing from Chief Frank Freevold, our Emergency Operations Center Director. Chief Freevold, if you'd like to briefly go through a brief overview of the reopening strategy locally, that would be great.
Very good. Thank you, Justin. And thank you all for taking the time to join us here for a little bit this evening. Mine's going to be really quick. I think Supervisor Peters actually handled that material really well, exactly where we're at as far as the 4 stages, and that we have actively sought a variance as defined by the state. We actually, if there's one important thing I wanted to share here, is that the county and the town and your elected officials have not been passively waiting, kind of, you know, everybody's sitting on their hands waiting for the governor to come tap them on the shoulder. In the political sense, they've been very active, stating the case for Mona County, what is unique about it. At the EOC, we turned in, before there was ever any form to turn in for a variance request, we spontaneously submitted a document thoroughly explaining our condition and readiness to move forward. Supervisor Peters mentioned as succinctly as you can, there are a number of things that you consider on this. You can go on the California COVID-19 website, and if you navigate through, eventually you can actually find the form that we had to go through. But at present, as it exists today, there are two non-negotiable items on there to qualify. One is that in the past 14 days, you cannot exceed 1 case per 10,000 population in your county. And the other is that you can have no deaths in the last 14 days. Unfortunately, we've cleared the second of those hurdles. But as you know, we've had several cases that popped up over the weekend. I believe the next time that we can review that under the current conditions would be the 23rd. I do know that the situation on this is fluid, as it has been nearly since day one. So the biggest thing I can advise and actually request from all of you, because everybody's done a great job, or we couldn't be in the position that we are today to even be making this case for variance, because I do believe we're very ready. You've all done great work there, and there's a temptation here as we're getting into the summer months, those few months, especially in our North County areas where you have just a few months to really make all of the economic activity you're going to see for the year. We know there's this tremendous drive to want to just keep nudging ahead. We don't have to guess what's going to happen if we get out ahead of the governor. He's displayed regularly and frequently the willingness and ability to enforce the limitations that he has in place. I don't know that I'll spend a lot of time here, but there's no shortage of those. It can be rescinding orders that we put out to get out ahead of them. It can be putting on notice the ability to lose or possibly have to return state and federal funding. People who are right on the cusp, as we are, to turn in a resilience or a variance rather, maybe deciding to have a large rodeo in direct violation can then put the ability to qualify at risk. So I know this is very hard to hear, but I'm just asking you, please be patient. I think we're closer than we realize that we can maybe state. We're very close. Help us stick with it. We are going to get there.
Thank you, Chief. Moving on to our final proactive speaker for this evening, and we're going to turn it over to discuss testing and also recovered cases. Brian would be great. So we're going to turn it over to Brian Wheeler from Public Health.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
And thank you, Supervisor Peters, for having me here tonight. Testing is actually improving. The availability of test supplies, both from the state and other vendors, has definitely increased over the past week. We're getting more supplies in, more testing supplies. We have an ample amount of tests in the county to provide a great amount of testing right now. Anyone that comes in that has symptoms can be tested. If you call the nursing hotline and get referred, you'll be tested. And there's plenty of availability for testing for all of our contact tracing efforts. And a new added wrinkle is that public health has started testing. We conducted 20 tests today. So you will, and because we're sending our specimens to San Joaquin Public Health Lab, you will probably see that pending number of cases appear again on the COVID update. So testing situation-wise for the county, we're looking pretty good. And we're excited that public health is now doing some testing as well. As far as reporting recovered patients, it's a little challenging. Part of it is, you know, people will still be shedding virus for a long time after they've recovered. And, you know, that virus that they're shedding after extended a period of time is not viable virus. It's not causing any kind of disease. It's not transmissible, but it's still detectable on tests. So how do we define who's recovered if you can't do a retest, right? CDC has some guidelines out there of, you know, not having symptoms for a certain period of time. And that's all well and good, but we also have many cases who we've tested through contact tracing who were asymptomatic, never had symptoms. And how do you decide whether they've recovered or not? What I would say is that out of the cases we have, all but one are recovered or recovering. Unfortunately, we did have the one gentleman who passed away, and that's very unfortunate and sad. But other than that, everyone else is either recovered or in the state of recovery. Thank you.
So just a quick recap, you know, after listening to everyone's presentations, and I know there's a lot of concern and people are understanding this very clearly. Testing and positive tests adversely affect the ability to move through stage 2 based on today's current reopening parameters. We're advocating, the board is advocating through state officials to change that ability to advocate through stage 2 with different criteria for testing in a county like Mono. So I just wanted you to be clear that don't not get tested. Go get tested if you have symptoms, and call 211 to do that. There's going to be at the end of this Q&A some updates on what resources are out there and how to access them. There's a lot we could, you know, potentially try to cover in 1 hour, but the focus here is on you, the question and answer period. So we're going to start that right now, and you have lots of resources on this panel to help answer them.
Thank you, Supervisor Peters. Let's move to our first question. And Jeff Simpson, this question I think is going to be directed towards you. We're working on a COVID-19 operations plan to keep our employees and guests safe. Who at the county can review this plan for us?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you want to send it to me or Winnie Sugamera with Community Development, I believe they're reviewing those, and then also Louis Molina. So if you want to send it to me, I can have the team review it and get back to you with any additional questions or details. I'll put my contact information in the chat box as well.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Next question. When are golf courses opening? They have opened all over California at this time. Chief, would you like to take that question?
Yes, my understanding is that the golf courses, there's so much to remember on these different sector types. I believe it's a very small group size. One person per cart, kind of an issue. The question we heard from some of the golf course owners was the ability to, you know, maintain and water those originally. So I don't believe the issue is with not being able to use the golf courses per se. I think it's the limitations on the size of the groups that go through, and then maybe some limitations on the type of maintenance work.
Thank you, Chief. We have a few questions that I'm going to try and consolidate around the topic of North County being very different from Mammoth Lakes, and whether or not there is the ability for the county to be split and for North to move more quickly and advance through stage 2 than Mammoth Lakes. And Chief Freevault, I believe you'd like to take this question.
Yes, originally obviously the governor's orders were statewide. There were no changes to that. Then, getting the dates mixed up here, but obviously fairly recently, I think it was last week, the governor rolled out this opportunity for counties to submit a variance. They recognized that the virus had affected different counties in very different ways. As we moved through that process, in fact, right on the evening we were going through the first part of that process, we were one of the first ones to do it, as with the other items. You start that off with a phone conversation, consultation with some of the staff there at CDPH, and that very day we had contracted some new cases that had come up positive. During the next day, conversations in the morning and in the evening, Dr. Boo is a prolific writer and meeting attender. He did pose that question because it was clear that we had the nearly all of the cases from Mona County had been in what we call the Greater Mammoth Lakes area. So they took that question and put it back to state CDPH. We've not received a reply on that because I'm sure it takes some time for them to review it. But yes, we did put in a written request to allow a variance at the county level while keeping the Mammoth area under stricter guidelines, but we haven't received a response on that yet.
Thank you, Chief. Next question is for Director Dermody. Why are we opening our passes if we are not yet ready to handle the increase in visitors while we were under the stay-at-home order?
Great question. Every year we get the pressure of, hey, how quick can you open the passes? Get them open, get them open, get them open. And this year is obviously way different for us all. We didn't make that decision lightly. I know our team has been working closely with the Mono board as well as with the EOC for Mono County. A lot of you may notice that State Route 89 did stay closed for quite a while. Usually State Route 89 over Monitor Pass usually opens, I'd say March, sometimes April, but this year we held it till May 8th. And so that was done kind of working and coordinating with the EOC, but some of you on the EOC that I haven't talked to you recently, sorry, because I haven't been on those meetings yet since I'm brand new, but I do know those conversations have been had, and it was decided that, yeah, we should start looking at opening some of our passes. And remember, it's for essential travel, and we put those in our press releases when we do open those passes, say, hey, remember the governor's order, this is for essential travel, because there are some folks out there that have requested that essential travel over those passes. And so anyway, that's where we stand.
Thank you very much. Next question, can we get Mammoth Mountain involved in these meetings? If we open, how do we know that we can mark it? They have not issued a statement since March. We will also need an update from Forest Service soon on what will be open or what will remain closed. Chief Freevault, do you want to field that one?
Certainly. We at the EOC, and remember the EOC is a combined operation for the county and the town, and obviously public health. We have had meetings with Mammoth Lakes I'm sorry, a little tired today, with Mammoth Mountain regarding, obviously at the very beginning, they made a decision to suspend operations, which was necessary to get us down to base population. I've talked with Mark Brownlee a number of times over the last few weeks for various reasons. And as you know, they have a larger, corporate set of consequences for all of their decisions, so they don't get to make unilateral decisions here locally, but they are highly engaged in what we have going on. They need to see how we're managing things as well as they consider what their their future operations are going to be. I've not heard any decisions from them about opening up for summer activities at this point. If they do, I'm sure they would be limited within whatever constraints that we have from the public health side. So we do talk to them regularly. We don't get to tell them when to put out statements on their intent. But they do understand where we're at in managing the incident, and we have an idea of where they're at. In fact, they're supporting, we have some SCE work being done, necessary tree trimming work being done around some of our power lines. We do have some people staging up there at present. And that's the best I can summarize their operations, and I wouldn't want to get out in front of them.
Thank you, Chief. Next question. There are a lot of questions and confusion over RV stays and the length, whether over 30 days, one night. Supervisor Peters, did you want to address RV lodging?
Yeah, the Board of Supervisors discussed RV parks as a potential carve out, and basically we're noticing there are a lot of RVs on the sides of roads. They're here. They're part of what Mono County's great, wilderness and scenic values and recreational values are to folks that are not necessarily Californians, all of them, some from other states. So we're talking about that. I'm sure that conversation will be furthered tomorrow at the special board meeting at 10 a.m. But still, the current nightly rental restriction is in effect for any nightly rental or any nightly rental reservation, and any 30+ day stay is not a nightly rental. So that's about all I can really report out on that. And there's a lot of questions specifically about that, but I think we'll learn more in the coming days about the potential for RV parks and RV stays to potentially be carved out. And hopefully that covers your questions, and we can take more of those questions directly to the EOC and to the Board of Supervisors in our coming meetings.
Thank you, Supervisor Peters. Chief Freevault, looks like you'd like to add.
Just very quickly, we had put in the guidelines for extended stays early, and county staff has been helping us with that. We also modified those for short term in anticipation of approval for RV shorter term stays. We also included that in some of our conversations with CDPH as an exception. We were explaining that we're having a lot of dispersed camping. Even though it's a little chilly today, we are moving closer to fire season. And so we've also been asking on the CDPH side, we're kind of trading one risk for another. And so we are actively seeing if we can get some kind of relief on the short-term stays in RV campgrounds.
Thank you, Chief. Next question. If Nevada is open and California is not, can they travel here? If so, can we not open our hotels to them? Chief.
This one again. It seems like these are pointing towards me. I think I mentioned yesterday or today the complexity of these rules we're trying to manage have all the clarity of offshore corporate tax law. And they're sometimes changing, daily. The governor's stay-at-home order applies to California as governor, and so when we have surrounding states that aren't necessarily on the same page, we don't have any way to affect that. What that does turn though is it turns in then to well, if that's the case, then can we do this next thing? And I understand the question is completely logical. They're driving right past your location. We certainly wouldn't want people who are traveling through to be fatigued. They didn't feel like they could, pull over and stay someplace from a displaced traveler standpoint. We've had CHP needing rooms for people who, their vehicle has become disabled and needed a place to stay. So presently, for those types of reasons that are really exceptions to things like just straight up tourism, those narrow cases are allowed. But until we get into stage 3, unless something else changes in that, regardless of the ability to travel, we don't have an open-ended short-term rental permission yet.
Justin, let me follow up because Chief mentioned stage 3. So just so people understand that stage 3, at some part of stage 3, that is potentially when tourism travel will be opened up for the state of California. So that's a critical part of this roadmap to recovery that the governor's laid out, that, you know, it's, and again, I'm going to reiterate, there's going to be some resources at the end of this meeting. One of them is going to be an interpretation by our, what's the JIC stand for?
Joint Information Center.
Joint Information Center has put together a interpretation of the roadmap to recovery and what is allowed and not allowed in each stage. It's going to be really critical to understand that as we get later into the stage 2 and then enter into stage 3. And we will be doing that. It will be happening. It's just how soon. And I know it's not going to be soon enough for anyone, but that is important to know for moving around California for tourism.
Thank you, Supervisor Peters. Next question. I apologize. I'm trying to get through all these and consolidate if possible. Can we rent out boats and kayaks? Jeff, did you want to take this?
You know, I'm unsure the answer to that, actually. I would defer to Chief Freeball if you know the answer to that, Chief.
I can just quickly take this. That there is no carve out right now for activities like the ones asked in the question, or horseback riding. Those are ongoing discussions of how we navigate to get those type of activities opened, even if they're just for locals who are trying to recreate. But I do know that if you have a kayak, or you can get a kayak, not through a business, you are welcome to put it safely in a launchable spot that is not a closed off parking lot or other restricted area. So doesn't really help those businesses that are in the business of renting bikes, bicycles, kayaks, all those things. We're trying to figure out how to start figuring out carve outs for those type of things, like the RV park short term.
Thank you, Supervisor. I believe part of this question has been addressed, but it's come up a number of times, so I'm going to pose it once more. Has Mono County sent a letter to the state's health office specifically stating why we should be able to move into the latter part of stage 2? And if not, why not?
So yes, we, actually in 2 different ways we've submitted that. The first was an unsolicited or unrequested letter that we sent, which used the 6 key indicators that the governor had identified as kind of his framework. So we described our readiness within the framework of key indicators that he's been using. The following, that was sent on a Friday, I think it is 2 weeks ago. The following Monday or Tuesday was when he issued, as part of his executive order, direction to his CDPH manager to create a process for counties to do this. As soon as that process became available in the way of a form, an online form on the state site, Dr. Boo promptly filled one out. And again, that was a little unsolicited. The process usually starts with a phone call, and then you fill one out. And true to his, his commitment here, he went ahead and just launched one out to start with, to paint the picture, and then set up a phone call, which theoretically would have had another chance to review that in a formal sense. As I mentioned earlier, right on at the same time that we had put that in, we had 3 or 4 cases come in positive. In that process, we specifically asked about our pack stations, our kayaks. I think we worded it as any guided tour operations. We wanted to include that in, there's a section in the form called special considerations. And we said, look, these are not spelled out very well. And these are some mainstream businesses for us. So we would like to include those. And in the discussions that we were having, that the people felt those were very reasonable. We just didn't get to execute on them because we didn't qualify to turn in the form. But we went right there based on examples, especially in some of our North County businesses.
Thank you, Chief. My screen, hold on 1 second, apologies. How will the COVID-19 regulations affect property owners at Twin Lakes specifically? Supervisor Peters?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're referring to, if somebody is a second homeowner, there is no restriction on them being at their second home. The restriction is on non-essential travel in California. So there is no prohibition against being in your residence, whether it's a second home or first home. Also, I just wanted to add something. I know, and give Justin a chance to regroup on questions. When the health officer recently issued a wear a mask order. When we are out and about in our communities, when we are planning, as I know the chambers are trying to plan for events later in the summer, we need to model this ability to behave in a responsible way with social distancing and meeting the current guidelines that will be in existence, that are in existence now, that may be in existence later. They're constantly changing. But I think modeling that behavior will create the ability for us to have consumer confidence in wanting to come and recreate and stay in Mono County when that, when we get to those pivot points. So just keep that in mind. And, we have 2 lead people from our enforcement agencies, the California Highway Patrol and the Sheriff, Ingrid Braun. And I do want to give them, and we have like 15 minutes left, but if either of them wanted to say something for a minute or 2 about enforcement and what they're doing to help keep everybody safe, because they are out there and they want to keep themselves safe, and we need to do our part to help them stay safe so they can keep us safe. And one thing that Jan Cutts, who couldn't be on this call tonight, wanted to put out there is that there is a prohibition on any campfire, and there are illegal campfires in campsites that are dispersed occurring. So if you see, and we're moving into fire season, as Chief Freefalt said, if you happen to discover one of those, please report them, and so we can make sure we stay safe.
Thank you, Supervisor Peters. This a 2-part question. First part was addressed. The second, I think we should address here. Once we are open, will there be time between renters that we space out if you're renting your property, like 1 to 3 days? And perhaps we should discuss, some of the guidance that'll be in place for rentals at that time.
Yeah, that's the business guidelines are being developed and have had a really interactive development process. I mean, I learned something today that Airbnb, a marketer for many nightly rentals, has instituted a 24-hour pause between one rental to the next and specific cleaning guidelines. But I think that that's probably something that Jeff Simpson and the Economic Development Department and the business reopening guidelines can address. And a lot of those questions are still being, or those guidelines are still being developed. What is a requirement and what is a guideline when it comes to renting out property?
Yeah, just to follow up, Supervisor Peters, the 24-hour hold is a recommended action, not a requirement at this point. We have the second draft is available to review on the coronavirus portal under the business tab. It's at the very top of the page. Excuse me, there's also a business FAQ document there where a lot of answers can be found. And that is at monohealth.com/coronavirus, and then just click on the business tab at the top.
Thank you both. At what phase will churches be able to meet and with what restrictions? Chief Freevault, did you want to field that one?
Yes, so church congregations fall into, I'm pretty sure, in the stage 3 category. There were some questions early in the week about, if schools are going to open, how does that differ? And I know the governor was very clear about saying, look, there's been a tremendous amount of essential work done with our faith-based organizations to assist in outreach, but it was the congregate part of that had the limitation for obvious reasons. So that, as I understand it, will be in a stage 3.
Great, thank you. We cannot lose the summer season. At some point, when do you decide to defy the governor? 1 per 14 days will never happen. Supervisor Peters, do you want to take that?
The discussion to defy the governor has not proven to be very productive for other counties at this time. And I don't anticipate that we are going to have that discussion until we have done everything within our power to work with our region, work with our state agencies to do it in a way that we will be able to maintain being open when we reopen. And that is the critical part. We're going to need to do this in a way that we don't have a setback, which is part of the reopening. That's what you have to be prepared for, but we want to be prepared to open in the most responsible way for our guests, for our residents, for everybody in Mono County. And that's not something that we're discussing to completely defy. And I'll go back to what I said. It's not an us against them thing. We are all in this as us and them together to get this, past us eventually completely, but that it will not happen for a while. So we have to work within the framework that we as Californians are presented with through the state and local, through state and local government. And I want to add something about PPE and masks. Somebody typed in a message. I know of nobody that has requested a mask, a handmade cloth mask, that has been turned down. There are resources in Walker. You just go to the local chamber, email me. Brianna Brown at the chamber in Bridgeport has been distributing masks. And if you want a mask, no charge, just get a hold of the local chamber, get a hold of me. And one of my fellow Lions Club members up in Antelope Valley's wife is just making masks, all day, every day, and has plenty to pass out. So keep that in mind.
Thank you, Supervisor. Chief Freevault, did you want to add?
Just one quick item. Once we if we qualify for a variance, it doesn't mean that we go back if the next day we have 2 or 3 cases. Once you pass that hurdle, they understand that we will have more cases pop up. That's why the variance process looks very hard at your ability to manage cases. So it's not like we're going to go back and forth based on cases every day. Once we get the approval to move ahead, we keep on that process.
Thank you, Chief. Jeff, we have a couple of questions around business assistance. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's available currently?
Yeah, sure. I think the two main programs that are available through grants or forgivable loans are through the SBA. And the first is the EIDL, or the Emergency Disaster Loan. And that program is done taking new applications for the time being. If you've already submitted an application for that, they're going to process all of those before opening it up to new businesses. The only change to that is that agriculture businesses can now apply for that. So if you have an ag business, please go onto the SBA website and apply for that now. You can get up to $10,000 in free grant money that's forgivable. You get $1,000 per employee you have. The other program that is available is the Paycheck Protection Program, and that is based primarily on the amount of employees that you have. You take your yearly payroll, your 2019 payroll, and divide it by 12 months, and then times it by 2.5, and that's the amount that you are available to get through the SBA. You do have to work through your bank and a commercial lender in order to get this money. I'm seeing a lot of success with online lenders, particularly Cabbage.com. I spent, it's a 15-minute application. I spent some time with the business today filling that out, and we got a response in the afternoon that they were approved. So about a 4-hour turnover time. Anyways, if you have questions about this, I'm happy to work with you through the process. And with the PPP program, you don't even have to have employees. That's another new thing that they just introduced. If you're a sole operator of your business, you can now apply for this program as well. They still have about 40% of their money still available in this latest funding cycle, and they're running out of applicants that are applying. So there's money left on the table. We need to make sure that our businesses are applying for this and getting this money. So happy to help if anybody needs assistance with that.
Thanks, Jeff. And again, Jeff's contact is in the chat box below at the bottom of your screen. I did want to also mention that this Zoom meeting is being recorded. And so I noticed a number of questions from people who probably tuned in a little bit late, and questions were already addressed. So you'll be able to go to the COVID-19 portal and view this virtual town hall within the next couple of days. Next question is for Brian. Is there anywhere in the county where we can pay for an antibody test?
Currently, there's no antibody testing in Mono County. We do feel at some point it will be added on the services, but we are still waiting for tests to become more reliable. And an example of that is, the Abbott test, the 15-minute Abbott antibody test, which everyone was really keen on, now turns out to be 15 to 25% inaccurate, and that's just not a good test. So we are just kind of waiting for till there's proven quality to these tests. Thank you.
Okay. Justin, I'm going to just make sure Lieutenant Mayers has not been on a panel, and he wasn't asked to do a presentation, but if you wanted to say anything, just give a thumbs up. If not, we're good. We'll keep moving on. So he's good. Okay. And Chief Curdy, he's given updates on, fire restrictions at the RPAC meetings and chamber meetings. And if you wanted to say anything quickly about fire restrictions, because we want to provide some resources, you're welcome to. And I want to remind everybody, there are monthly RPAC meetings which you can participate in where we have public comment and you can talk about items, as well as Board of Supervisors meetings, which currently we're planning to hold Tuesdays and Thursdays, twice a week. And that can change as needed, as we need more meetings. But go ahead, Chief.
Fire restrictions, no. The only thing I have to say is Liberty Energy called me today and they said they're going to start work soon, and they're going to be working on the highway, and they're going to be in the valley all summer replacing poles and wire. And they'd like me to get that out to the community. So community members that are listening, this is a good update for them. And thank you.
Yeah, and I just did want to, offer, because this is, we can get into some more North County detail, that the East Side Lane project, the paving project is, if it hasn't started, it's going to be starting in the next few days. That's moving ahead. And anybody else that wants to raise their hand and has something specific to North County to say, happy to entertain that. I know Ryan's got projects going on, so expect some traffic delays on 395, and there'll be a lot of work on 108 over the course of the summer. But if you have any questions specific to just North County, just type them in the chat, in the Q&A, and go ahead, Justin. We have a few minutes left.
This question is for Brian. How many hospital night stays to date from COVID positive patients?
Can you repeat that for me, Justin?
Sure. How many hospital night stays to date from COVID positive patients?
So I can't tell you exactly how many hospital days patients were in the hospital, but I can say that currently there is no one hospitalized for COVID at this time. We haven't had anyone hospitalized for weeks, and that I do know that a couple of the cases were hospitalized for an extended period of time, but I don't know the exact amount of days.
This next question, when will the court open? CAO Lawton, did you want to take that, or Supervisor Peters?
Yeah, I don't think we have an answer for that. That's not a county, it's not over the county jurisdiction. We haven't heard any court date openings that I'm aware of. And we can get that answer for you, though. We can get back to you if you put your contact information in there. We'll certainly get that answer.
Just scrolling through. There's a question regarding Dr. Boo's participation, and I know that he participates in numerous meetings throughout the week. Chief Freevault, Bob Lawton, did you want to chime in about when Dr. Boo's available for comment?
Actually, this is one of the few meetings that I've not seen him join. He actually may be on another one currently. Yeah, if anybody is tuning into the these meetings, it's pretty rare I don't see him on here. So I'm not, is like, are they looking for a time or a way to reach him?
No, just asking about him being part of these online meetings.
Well, he generally is, as the chief has noted. We have our virtual community meeting on Thursday nights in English and in Spanish. That'll be tomorrow. And I fully expect Dr. Boo will participate in both of those, in both languages. And he is, I'm just surprised that he wasn't here tonight. And as Frank noted, he doubtless had another engagement. He is a constant presence of these. And
yeah, Bob, he's represented by Brian Wheeler, and I did not ask Dr. Boo to be part of this panel. Brian Wheeler is, in my mind, 100% capable of answering any and all questions and deferring to questions to be answered at a later time from Dr. Boo if he cannot. So it wasn't because he decided he didn't want to be on this. We have a lot of panelists.
Thank you. And with that, Supervisor Peters, given the time constraints, did you want to move into briefly showing some of the resources available? Did you want to?
Yeah. Let's show some of the resources, and just remember, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. is another opportunity to engage with the Board of Supervisors, to engage with our county staff, and those opportunities are often, and I encourage you to participate. Submit questions to the clerk of the board, or submit them to the entire Board of Supervisors, but they must get to the clerk of the board for them to be part of public comment in these meetings. And I want to thank Chair Corliss for attending this meeting. And I think it's rare where you have the opportunity to attend and you don't have to give presentations. And so anyways, we'll be working tomorrow to try to figure out ways to get our county open, and appreciate everybody being on this call. So yeah, let's move to resources. And
Thank you, Supervisor Peters. I'd like to first turn it over really briefly to Robin Roberts with Behavioral Health for a brief introduction of herself and her team and how you can reach out to her.
Hi there, this is Robin. I work for Mono County Behavioral Health, and we have services all throughout the county. Right now we're doing everything by either phone or virtually because of COVID. I just want to say, I get so tense listening in these meetings, like, you know, there's no answer, obviously, except for the answer is that we do know what's happened in other states and other countries when we haven't really kept to covering our faces and keeping our distance. So I know it's hard. It's beyond hard. I'm at 60 days. I know all of us here are working really hard to figure out what is the best course for Mono County. And I want to say that I really acknowledge all of the people that have worked so hard over these last 2 months to do the right thing and protect their community and protect each other. I hope that you'll find it in your heart and just in your spirit to continue to do that. If you need help with keeping yourself moving forward, either through this COVID experiment that we're going through, we are here to talk. We're here to talk to you, your family, your kids. We're here. We want to hear what the community has to say. We're trying to support everybody as much as possible. I can give you our phone number at 760-924-1740. We've opened up so that we're open 7 days a week, but mostly just really acknowledging how difficult this period of time is and how important it is that we keep doing the one thing we have control over so that we can get reopened here. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Robin. And then we'll move really quickly to Kathy Peterson, if she's still on, to just discuss a little bit of social services and where people can go for more information before we turn it over to showing the portal.
Hi, I'm having a little trouble getting my camera back on, but this is Kathy. And Kathy Peterson with Department of Social Services and Community Support. And one thing that I've been talking about a lot recently is that people who have children in schools and they're on free and reduced lunch, they should be looking out for delivery of the pandemic EBT. So it's an electronic benefits transfer card, and it provides people up to $356 per child. For most people that are enrolled in school, their children enrolled in school, they will not need to do anything. They should be receiving that card in the mail. So I want people to keep a lookout for that. That can help you with food services, getting food. Also, we are really wanting to help people enroll in the CalFresh program. If anybody wants to learn more about that, please call our office. We can do a lot to help people over the phone, 924-1770 for that service. And also we can have people referred now to IMACA for help with childcare. If you have some childcare needs and you want to pay somebody, one other person, to provide childcare for your family, please reach out to IMACA well, that's the Bishop number. I don't have off the top of my head the Mammoth number, but IMACA, and we can help you by calling our office. For childcare needs, they can help you pay for childcare if that's something that you are interested in. And I think those are the kind of the top of the moment updates that I can provide, unless anybody has any questions.
Actually, I just want to take a minute here and give a shout out to Kathy. most of you have no idea how much work her community support group is doing, the EOC. But it's really our 800-pound gorilla in terms of services delivered. They are doing a really broad range of work through Mono County. And she doesn't get on here much, but I just wanted to tip my hat. She's doing some really great work for you all.
Thank you, Chief. And at this point, I'm going to attempt to share my screen to show you where you can get additional resources. Let's see if this works. This is the new portal that is going to be live either late tonight or tomorrow. And this explains and walks through the path forward and reopening Mono County and where we are at within the California Resilience Roadmap. It talks about briefly what is acceptable activity, what is unacceptable activity in early stage 2, which is where we're currently at. Discusses how we progress to expanded stage 2, which was a lot of the questions today, and it outlines here sort of where we, what the criteria we have met and which criteria we have not met. And it discusses what expanded stage 2 means, and then goes further down into stage 3, and then finally stage 4. And so this again will be live on the portal website within the next day or two. And then this is the portal that we encourage everybody to visit for more information. This is where you'll be able to access all those community resources that we discussed, as well as information for businesses, health FAQs, information related to that, as well as access to phone numbers. And again, we wanted to make sure we direct everybody, should they feel ill, to 211. Calling 211 will direct you to not only the community resources, but we'll direct you to a nurse as well, should you be exhibiting symptoms, and then they can direct you to testing. So with that discussion on resources, I'll turn it back over to Supervisor Peters.
Thank you very much, Justin, and thank you to all the panelists and attendees, all of your questions. I hope that most of you found this useful. I know that there is currently there's been a weekly Thursday night kind of community meeting, and the focus here was to bring a different feel and look, and also a North County sort of vibe to the meeting. I also want to just thank our all of our county staff that has continued to work through this, continuing to provide the services that you expect as a resident or somebody that's in Mono County. Our EMTs, our EMS department, local fire departments, while Kathy Peterson is heading up the community support branch of the EOC, she is still working to provide all the social services resources that our county typically provides, and so much more. And a special thanks also to Cassandra for providing the update in Spanish. And I just will add that all of the resources that we are putting forth are available in Spanish. And if you now are not fully familiar with our CAO, Bob Lawton, his email and his phone number are available. He's very responsive. If you have, a concern about how do I find out about this, or what's the right resource for that? He's part of the EOC. He's also available to help answer questions. I forward a lot of emails that come through to either him or Brian Wheeler in public health, and these folks are awesome, responsive. Jeff Simpson in economic development. A lot of behind the scenes efforts are going on every day, 7 days a week, to try to get us back open. And the economic impact and devastation is not lost on any one of those folks that are working towards getting us reopened safely and responsibly within the state guidelines. And with that, I'm going to just leave it at that. And we hopefully will be open soon, and more information is coming out daily. So thanks everyone, Justin and Brian for moderating, and we'll talk to you all soon.